I walked into my own kitchen at 6 in the morning, and my daughter-in-law changed the locks while I was standing right there. She didn't even look at me. She just handed the locksmith a check and said, "The back door too. Please. We've had a vagrant problem." I was the vagrant. But before I tell you what I did next, and believe me, what I did next changed everything, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and tap that bell if you've ever been made to feel invisible in your own family. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from tonight. I want to know who's listening. My name is Donald Mercer. I'm 67 years old, and 2 years ago, my wife Helen died of a stroke in the middle of making Sunday pot roast. She was laughing at something on the television 1 second, and the next second she was on the floor. The paramedics said she was gone before she hit the linoleum. That was the last time I heard laughter in my house. Helen and I had been married 41 years. We built our life in a small brick colonial outside of Richmond, Virginia. I was a civil engineer for the state. I designed bridges. 38 years I spent making sure the roads people drove on wouldn't collapse beneath them. I retired with a pension and a gold-plated watch that stopped working after 6 months. Helen was a school librarian. She read more books than anyone I ever met, and she remembered every single one. When she died, the house felt like a library that someone had emptied of all its books. Just shelves and silence. The house was in both our names. That should have been simple. But Helen, God bless her organized soul, had set up a living trust years ago. She told me about it. I signed something. I didn't pay attention. I was building a bridge in Henrico County at the time, and my mind was on load calculations, not legal documents. Turns out the trust named our son Kevin as the successor trustee. It was supposed to protect us both in case of illness. It was supposed to keep things out of probate. What it actually did was hand my son and his wife a set of keys to my entire life. Kevin is 42. He married a woman named Tricia 11 years ago. Tricia is what Helen used to call a project manager. She manages everything. She manages Kevin's wardrobe, Kevin's schedule, Kevin's opinions. She managed the funeral. She managed the flowers, the guest list, and the catering. And 3 weeks after we buried Helen, she managed to sit me down at my own dining table and explain, with a spreadsheet she'd printed on glossy paper, why it made financial sense for me to sell the house and move in with them. I said no. I said it 3 times. I said it politely, firmly, and then desperately. But the trust Helen had set up to protect me, gave Kevin authority over the property. Tricia had already spoken to a real estate agent. A sign went up on my lawn on a Tuesday morning, while I was at the hardware store buying light bulbs. I came home to a for sale sign, stuck in Helen's rose garden. The house sold in 19 days. I didn't see a penny. Tricia explained it went into the trust. Kevin nodded along. I moved into their guest room in a subdivision outside of Charlottesville. The guest room was above the garage. It had a window that faced the neighbor's fence and a ceiling fan that clicked every 3rd rotation. My entire life fit into 4 boxes and a garment bag. That was 2 years ago. 2 years of clicking ceiling fans and cold dinners, and the sound of Tricia's heels on hardwood floors, always moving, always busy, always annoyed that I was there. I tried to help. I mowed their lawn. I fixed the dripping faucet in the hall bathroom. I built their daughter Emma a bookshelf for her birthday. Tricia smiled and said, "Thank you," and then moved the bookshelf into the basement because it didn't match the aesthetic. I became furniture. No, I became less than furniture. Furniture gets polished. I got ignored. My meals were whatever was left over from dinner, reheated in the microwave until the edges turned to rubber. My laundry was done once a week, on Tricia's schedule, and if I missed the window, I wore dirty clothes. I had a small television in the guest room, but the cable box was downstairs, and Tricia had a rule: no television after 9 because the sound travels. So I sat in my room at night and I listened to the clicking fan and I talked to Helen in my head and I told myself this was temporary. This was just until I got back on my feet. But you don't get back on your feet when someone keeps kicking them out from under you. Then the phone call came. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was sitting on the back patio, the one Tricia said I could use as long as I didn't leave coffee rings on the stone. My phone buzzed. It was a Virginia Beach area code. I didn't recognize it. Mr. Mercer? A woman's voice, professional, crisp. My name is Carolyn Webb. I'm an attorney with Ashford and Webb. I'm calling regarding the estate of Mr. Raymond Bosch. My heart stopped. Raymond Bosch. Uncle Ray. He wasn't my real uncle. He was my mother's cousin, a man who had no children of his own and who had treated me like a son when my own father walked out. Uncle Ray taught me to fish. He taught me to drive a stick shift. He taught me that a man's word was the only currency that mattered. We lost touch 20 years ago when he moved to the Outer Banks. I sent Christmas cards for a while, then stopped. The guilt of that silence had been sitting in my chest like a stone for years. Mr. Mercer, I'm sorry to inform you that Mr. Bosch passed away 6 weeks ago. He named you as sole beneficiary of his estate. I gripped the patio chair. Sole beneficiary. Uncle Ray had been a commercial fisherman his whole life. He lived in a small house near the water. I expected maybe a boat and some tackle, maybe a few $1,000s in a savings account. Can you come to our office in Virginia Beach? Miss Webb asked. There are documents that require your signature, and I think it's best if we discuss the details in person. I drove down the next morning. I told Kevin and Tricia I was going to visit an old friend. They didn't ask questions. They didn't care. Tricia just reminded me to be back by dinner because she needed me to watch Emma while she and Kevin went to a fundraiser. The law office was in a glass building near the ocean front. Carolyn Webb was a tall woman with reading glasses on a chain. She sat me down and opened a file that was nearly 2 inches thick. Mr. Mercer, she said, your uncle was a very private man. He lived modestly, as you probably remember. But Mr. Bosch made some very wise investments over the past 30 years. She slid a summary sheet across the desk. I read it. I read it again. I took off my glasses, cleaned them, put them back on, and read it a third time. Raymond Bosch had owned 14 rental properties along the Outer Banks, beachfront cottages, vacation homes, a small motel. He'd been collecting rent for decades. He also owned a 60-acre parcel of undeveloped oceanfront land that a hotel developer had been trying to buy for years. And he had a brokerage account with a balance that made my vision blur. Total estimated value of the estate, $22 million. I sat in that leather chair and I could not speak. I could not move. 22 million. Uncle Ray, the man who wore the same flannel jacket for 15 years and drove a truck with a cracked windshield, had been sitting on $22 million. Miss Webb slid another paper across the desk. There was a handwritten note clipped to the top. I recognized Uncle Ray's blocky handwriting. Donnie, I should have called. I should have visited. I didn't because I was stubborn and proud, just like your mother. This is my apology. Use it well. Don't let anyone take it from you. You were the closest thing to a son I ever had. Ray. I drove home with the windows down, the salt air of Virginia Beach still in my clothes. My hands were shaking on the wheel. Not from fear, from possibility. $22 million. I could buy a house. I could buy 10 houses. I could set up Emma's college fund. I could pay off Kevin's mortgage. I could fix everything. I could finally stop being a burden. I pulled into the driveway at 7 in the evening. The fundraiser had been canceled. Kevin's car was in the garage. I walked up to the front door, my heart pounding, a smile on my face that felt foreign after 2 years of nothing. I reached for the handle. It didn't turn. I tried again. The deadbolt. I fumbled for my key. It didn't fit. I tried it 3 times, scraping metal against metal, and then I understood. The locks. Tricia had changed the locks. I stood there on the porch of my son's house, holding a key that no longer worked, and I heard them through the kitchen window. It was open, just a crack. Tricia's voice, low and sharp. I'm telling you, Kevin. The fundraiser people called. The Harringtons asked why your father was at every single event last month just standing in the corner like a lost dog. It's embarrassing. People are starting to talk. Kevin's voice. Tired. He's lonely, Trish. He doesn't have anywhere else to go. That's exactly the problem. He doesn't have anywhere to go, and he doesn't have any money, and he's dragging us down. I had Christine from my book club ask me last week if we were housing the elderly now. Housing the elderly. Kevin, like we run a shelter. What do you want me to do? Meadow Ridge. I already called. They have a shared room available next month. It's clean, it's affordable, and it's covered by his pension and Social Security. We just need him to sign the paperwork. Meadow Ridge. I knew the place. Everybody in Charlottesville knew it. The long cinder block building by the highway on-ramp. The parking lot with the weeds growing through the cracks. The place that smelled like disinfectant and resignation. It wasn't assisted living. It was a waiting room for the end. Trish, that's... Kevin started. It's what we can afford, she snapped. Unless you want to keep paying for his medication out of our savings. His heart pills alone are $400 a month. I'm not funding his retirement, Kevin. I'm not. He had his whole life to plan for this, and he didn't. That wasn't true. I had planned. I had a house. I had savings. I had a pension. But the house was sold. The savings went into a trust I couldn't access. And my pension, $2,300 a month, barely covered my medications and the grocery money. Tricia demanded I contribute. Kevin didn't argue. He never argued. He just sighed. That deep, defeated sigh I'd been hearing for 2 years. And said, I'll talk to him tomorrow. I stepped back from the door. The envelope from Miss Webb was in my jacket pocket. $22 million. I had driven home ready to save them, ready to be the hero, ready to sit them down and say, it's going to be okay. Instead, I was standing on a porch with a useless key, listening to my son agree to put me in a home. Something shifted inside me. Not anger. Not yet. Something colder. Something quieter. A decision. I knocked on the door. Tricia opened it. Her face cycled through annoyance, then recovery, then that bright plastic smile. Oh, Donald, I'm so sorry. The locksmith came today. We had a security concern. I completely forgot to leave you a new key. Come in. Come in. She handed me a single key. One key. Not two. The front door only. The message was clear. You are a guest in this house, and guests can be asked to leave. I shuffled past her. My shoulders slumped. My face tired. I didn't have to act. I was tired. But underneath the exhaustion, something new was burning. A cold, blue flame. That night, in the clicking fan room above the garage, I made a decision. I wasn't going to tell them. Not yet. I was going to wait. I was going to watch. I was going to see exactly who they were when they thought I had nothing. The next morning, Kevin sat across from me at the breakfast table. Tricia hovered behind him, pretending to wipe down the counter. Dad, he started, and I could see how much it cost him. I could see the boy I'd raised, the kid who used to ride on my shoulders at the county fair. He was still in there, buried under years of Tricia's management. Dad, we've been talking, and we think it might be time to look at some options. For you, for your comfort. Options, I said, keeping my voice thin. What kind of options? Tricia swooped in. Just a lovely community, Donald. Meadow Ridge. It's wonderful. They have activities, group meals. You'd be around people your own age. You'd have friends. I looked at her. Friends. Like the friend who changed my locks without telling me. She didn't flinch. She just smiled wider. I played my part. I let my eyes go watery. I let my hands shake around my coffee mug. I'll think about it, I whispered. Just give me a few days. Tricia's smile tightened. She wanted this done now. But Kevin put his hand on her arm and said, Take your time. Dad, I had bought myself a window. A small one. But it was enough. That afternoon, while they were both at work and Emma was at school, I called Carolyn Webb from the bathroom with the door locked and the faucet running. Miss Webb, I said, I need to move fast. I need you to set up an irrevocable trust. I want the rental properties, the brokerage account, all of it locked down. Only I can access it. No family member, no guardian, no power of attorney. Can you do that? She could. She did. It took 4 days of quiet phone calls, whispered conversations, and deleted text messages. By Friday, $16 million in real estate and investments were sealed inside a trust that not even a court-appointed guardian could crack. The remaining $6 million from the undeveloped oceanfront parcel. I told her to put that aside. I had plans for it, but not yet. Meanwhile, the cruelty at home accelerated. Tricia left a second brochure on my nightstand. She accidentally turned off the hot water to the upstairs bathroom. She started locking the pantry. She told Kevin I was getting confused, that I'd left the stove on, that I'd wandered outside in my slippers at midnight. None of it was true, but Kevin believed her. Kevin always believed her. Then I heard something I wasn't supposed to hear. It was past midnight. I was lying awake, staring at the ceiling fan, counting its clicks. Through the floor vent, I could hear their bedroom. Tricia's voice carried like a blade. "It's gone, Kevin. All of it." "What do you mean, all of it?" "The business account. The LLC. I made some investments. They didn't pan out." "Investments?" Kevin's voice rose. "What investments?" "Tricia, that was $140,000. That was our operating capital. It was supposed to double. The guy Marcus introduced me to, he said the returns were guaranteed. It was a fund, a private equity thing. It was supposed to be safe, a private equity thing. She'd been scammed, or she'd been gambling. It didn't matter which. The money was gone." Kevin's voice cracked. "The mortgage, Trish. We're 3 months behind. I've been using my bonus checks to cover it, but that's gone too now. If we miss another payment..." "I know," she hissed. "That's why we need your father out. His pension, Kevin. If we get authority over his finances, that's $2,800 a month we can redirect. And if he has anything else, any savings, any accounts we don't know about, there it was. The real plan. I wasn't just a burden to be disposed of. I was a piggy bank to be cracked open." I called Carolyn Webb at 2 a.m. She picked up on the second ring. I told her everything. "Donald," she said, her voice sharp with concern. "If they file for guardianship and get a sympathetic judge, they could gain access to your Social Security, your pension, and potentially challenge the trust if they argue you were mentally impaired when you signed it. You need documentation. You need proof that you are competent and that they are acting in bad faith." "How?" I asked. She told me, and I listened. For the next 2 weeks, I documented everything. I kept a journal hidden inside the lining of my suitcase. Every missed meal, every locked door, every lie Tricia told Kevin about my confusion. I noted dates, times, and specific words. I recorded Tricia on my phone when she told Kevin I'd been talking to myself in the garage, which was me on the phone with my lawyer. I photographed the locked pantry, the disconnected hot water line, the thermostat in my room set to 55 degrees. And all the while, I played the part. I shuffled. I repeated questions. I pretended to forget Emma's name once, calling her Helen, and I watched Tricia's eyes light up like a slot machine hitting 777s. Then the doctor came. A man named Dr. Pace, Tricia's family friend. A psychologist who showed up on a Saturday morning with a clipboard and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. They sat me in the living room, Tricia perched on the arm of the sofa, her legs crossed, watching me like a cat watches a mouse. "Donald, doctor," Pace began, "your family is concerned about you. I'm just here to have a chat. Nothing formal." I looked at him. I looked at Tricia. I looked at Kevin, who was standing by the window, staring at the yard, unable to meet my eyes. I sat up straight. I uncrossed my hands, and I spoke in a voice that had commanded construction crews for 38 years. "Dr. Pace," I said, "I know exactly who you are. You're a licensed psychologist, not a geriatric specialist. You're here because my daughter-in-law wants you to sign a cognitive impairment evaluation so she can file for emergency guardianship. I know this because I heard her plan it through the floor vent 11 days ago, and I have a recording of the conversation on my phone." The room went absolutely silent. "I also know," I continued, "that Tricia lost $140,000 of their savings in what was either a scam or an unauthorized investment. I know they are 4 months behind on their mortgage. I know she wants access to my pension to cover the shortfall. And I know that none of this has anything to do with my mental health. I pulled my phone from my pocket. I pressed play. Trish's voice filled the room. His pension. Kevin. If we get authority over his finances, that's $2,800 a month we can redirect. The color drained from Trish's face like water from a bathtub. Dr. Pace closed his clipboard. He looked at Trisha, then at me. And then he stood up. I think there's been a misunderstanding, he said. I don't think my services are needed here. He left. The front door closed softly behind him. Trisha was shaking, not with fear, with fury. She wheeled on me. You recorded me? You spied on us? I watched you, I said. The same way you watched me. Except I was paying attention. Kevin finally turned from the window. His face was gray. Dad, he whispered. I didn't know about the money. She told me we were fine. She told me, I know what she told you, son. She told you a lot of things. She told you I left the stove on. I didn't. She told you I wandered outside at midnight. I didn't. She turned off my hot water. She locked the pantry. She changed the locks on the front door while I was still living here. Kevin looked at Trisha. She didn't deny it. She couldn't. The recordings were right there in my hand. You're a spiteful old man, Trisha said, her voice low and venomous. You think you've won something? You have nothing. You're broke and alone, and nobody wants you. So, congratulations on your little recording. It doesn't change the fact that you're still living in my house with my family eating my food. About that, I said. I reached into my jacket. I pulled out the envelope. The one from Carolyn Webb. The one I'd been carrying for 3 weeks like a loaded weapon. There's something I didn't tell you, I said. When I went to Virginia Beach, I wasn't visiting a friend. I was visiting a lawyer. My uncle Raymond Bosch passed away last month. He left me his entire estate. Trisha blinked. So what? She said. What did some old fisherman leave you? A broken boat. He left me $22 million. The words landed like a grenade. Trisha's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Kevin grabbed the back of a chair to steady himself. 22. Kevin repeated. Dad, that's not possible. 14 rental properties on the Outer Banks. 60 acres of undeveloped beachfront. A brokerage account. I slid the asset summary out of the envelope and placed it on the table. It's all there. Every penny. I watched Trisha's face transform. It was like watching a time-lapse of a flower blooming, except the flower was made of greed. The rage evaporated. The contempt vanished. In its place came something I can only describe as hunger. Oh my God, she breathed. Oh my God, Donald. That's wonderful. She stepped toward me, her arms opening. We should celebrate. We can pay off the mortgage. We can renovate the house. We can set up Emma's college fund. We can. Stop, I said. She froze mid-step. I came home 3 weeks ago, I said, ready to share this with you. I was going to pay off your mortgage. I was going to clear your debts. I was going to buy myself a small cottage nearby so I could see Emma grow up. I was going to give you everything you needed. And then I stood on that porch and I heard you planning to put me in Meadow Ridge. I heard you call me a lost dog. I heard you say I was dragging you down. And I heard my son, my only child, agree to sign me away. Kevin made a sound like he'd been punched in the stomach. So I waited, I said. I waited to see if it was just a bad night, just stress talking. But it wasn't. It got worse. You locked the pantry. You turned off my hot water. You tried to have me declared incompetent. You did all of this because you thought I was worthless. Because a worthless man doesn't fight back. Donald, please. Trisha started. The money is in an irrevocable trust, I said. $16 million, locked away. Only I can access it. Not Kevin. Not you. Not a guardian. Not a judge. Me. It was set up 3 weeks ago by a licensed attorney, while I was fully competent, fully documented, and fully aware of exactly what was happening in this house. Trisha's face collapsed. The greedy bloom withered in real time. She understood. The money existed, but it was behind a wall she would never climb. You can't do that, she whispered. We're family. Family, I repeated. Is that what this is? Is that what you call locking a 67-year-old man out of the pantry? Is that what you call turning off his hot water in November? Kevin dropped into a chair. He put his head in his hands. Dad, he said, his voice muffled. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have stopped her. I should have said something. I should have. Yes, I said. You should have. I raised you better than this, Kevin. Your mother raised you better than this. But you chose comfort over courage. And that's something you're going to have to live with. I picked up the asset summary from the table. Now, I said, here's what's going to happen. I've had my attorney purchase your mortgage from the bank, both the original note and the line of credit Tricia took out behind your back. Kevin's head snapped up. What line of credit? Tricia went pale. Ask your wife, I said. The fight that followed was the worst I've ever witnessed between two people. Kevin screaming, Tricia crying. The truth about the lost money, the failed investment, the secret borrowing, all of it pouring out like sewage from a broken pipe. I didn't watch. I went upstairs to my room. I packed my 4 boxes and my garment bag. It took 11 minutes. That's how small my life had become. 11 minutes. When I came back downstairs, they were sitting on opposite ends of the sofa. Tricia's makeup was ruined. Kevin looked like he'd aged 10 years. I set a white envelope on the coffee table between them. I own this house now, I said. That's a 60-day eviction notice. You have 2 months to find somewhere to go. Kevin looked at me with eyes I barely recognized. They were red and wet and lost. Dad, he whispered. Please. Emma. Where will Emma go? That stopped me. Not Tricia's theatrics. Not Kevin's guilt. Emma. My granddaughter. 10 years old. Brown hair and Helen's eyes. The only person in this house who had never treated me like a ghost. The girl who brought me a glass of water every night without being asked. The girl who sat on the garage steps and listened to my bridge stories and never once looked bored. I looked at Kevin. Emma will always have a place with me, I said. Always. But you and I, son. We have a long road ahead before you sit at my table again. I walked out. I drove to Virginia Beach. I moved into Uncle Ray's house, a weathered cedar cottage overlooking the Atlantic. The porch faced east. And every morning, the sunrise hit the water and turned it into liquid copper. Uncle Ray's old fishing rod was still leaning against the railing. I left it there. I sold the 60 acres to the hotel developer for $6.2 million. I used it to create the Helen and Raymond Mercer Foundation. We provide free legal representation and emergency housing for elderly Americans being financially exploited by their own families. We've filed 9 lawsuits in 8 months. We've stopped 4 guardianship petitions. We've moved 6 seniors out of dangerous homes and into safe ones. Every case file that crosses my desk, I see my own face looking back at me. The house in Charlottesville sold at auction. Kevin and Tricia separated. She moved to her sister's place in Georgia. Kevin got a 1-bedroom apartment and a job at a civil engineering firm. He started from the bottom, doing surveys and site inspections in the heat. He didn't complain. He didn't ask for money. He started going to therapy. My phone rang on a Sunday morning. I was on the porch, watching the pelicans dive. Hey, Dad. Kevin's voice was different. Quieter. Steadier. Hey, son. I got my first paycheck. A real one. From work, I used it to buy groceries and I had enough left over to get Emma new shoes for school. That's good, Kevin. That's real good. A long pause. I could hear the ocean on my end and traffic on his. Dad, he said. Emma keeps asking about you. She drew you a picture of a bridge. She wants to give it to you. My throat tightened. Christmas is coming up, he said. I know I don't deserve to ask. I know that. But would it? Could we maybe drive down? Just for the day. I'll bring everything. I'll cook. Emma misses you. And I miss you too, Dad. I miss you so much. I looked at the ocean. I thought about Helen. I thought about Uncle Ray. I thought about the man I was 2 years ago. Sitting in a room above a garage, counting the clicks of a broken ceiling fan, believing that was all I had left. Bring Emma's picture, I said, and bring a warm coat. It gets cold on the porch in the evening. But the stars out here? Kevin, you won't believe the stars. I heard him take a breath, a real breath, like a man who'd been underwater for a long time and had finally broken the surface. Okay, Dad, he whispered. Okay. I hung up. I sat there for a long time, the salt air on my face, the sound of the waves keeping time like a heartbeat. My story could have ended in that room above the garage. It could have ended at Meadow Ridge, in a shared room with a stranger, eating cafeteria mashed potatoes while my daughter-in-law spent my pension on bad investments. But it didn't. Because I listened, I paid attention, and I refused to disappear. If you're out there tonight, sitting in your own cold room, wondering if anyone sees you, I want you to hear me. You are not a burden. You are not invisible. And you are never, ever, too old to fight for yourself. Now, if this story meant something to you, hit that like button for me. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. And tell me in the comments, was I too hard on them? Or did they get exactly what they earned? I'll be down there reading every single one. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.